Hey guys, what's up? My name is Anthony, and welcome to another edition of B&A Sports Talk. And today, I want to talk about tight end position for the Giants and who potentially we can target if we decide to move on from some of our players now, because I think we're pretty thin at the tight end position. We're letting Scott Simonson walk. He was a great story, but he hasn't really been that productive. I believe he only had like 2 catches for 16 yards this year. But we had a bright spot this year in Caden Smith down the stretch. I think around 40 receptions, 260 or so yards, and 3 touchdowns. And him and Daniel Jones have that connection. And with this new coaching staff, you want some continuity. You don't want a whole new system to come in. I think him and Caden Smith had a good rhythm, and Daniel Jones and Evan Engram also had a good rhythm together. There's no real person that Evan Engram didn't have a good chemistry with, but yeah, so Evan Engram has been fairly productive. If you look at his stats, his first couple years, he was there. He was fairly healthy, but over the last year and a half, it hasn't really been that hot. He has that Liz Frank injury. It just seems injury after injury for Evan Engram, and he hasn't been that available. But last year and this year, if you take a look at his 16-game average stats, if you were to extrapolate it, it would be around like 1,100 yards, 100 receptions, 12 touchdowns, and he'd be a perennial Pro Bowl tight end. But the best ability is availability, and he hasn't been available, and I don't really trust his health. So Evan Engram, if somebody offers a third-round pick for us, like even a fourth, that compensates for the Leonard Williams trade right there, and you can potentially draft somebody, but you can also get somebody in free agency. I haven't really done that much research with the draft, although I skimmed through some people. There's no real top tight end guy, but usually tight ends are found in the second and third round, so that could potentially be an option for us, but I also have some options in free agency, and here's what I'm thinking. So Joe Judge, he's used tight ends effectively with the Patriots. He was special teams coordinator until recently, where he's the wide receivers coach. But he has some experience in that angle. Tight end is a gadget guy. It's a guy who jumped up. He's a basketball player pretty much. He can jump up. Pretty athletic, can block big. It's a very versatile skill set you need as a tight end. And he's worked with Rob Gronkowski. He's worked with a bunch of tight ends. I'm not saying bring anybody over from New England. In fact, they haven't been effective at all. That's the reason why they weren't successful this year in the long term. They didn't have a guy for Tom Brady to go to. And I think bringing a guy for Daniel Jones to go to would be important. Rob Gronkowski is an option, I think, but it's a long shot. He had good words to say at the Super Bowl for Joe Judge. He believes in him. But I don't really think Rob Gronkowski is going to come out of retirement. But, if we're going down the stretch, the Giants need a tight end. He may do a favor for his buddy, get into shape a little bit, and make a little bit of a run for it. But I think as you get away from football, you kind of miss it a little bit, but then you get used to it. Like, oh yeah, I don't hurt when I wake up and stuff like that. And I think he's really enjoying his new life, WWE, whatever he's getting into, CBD and stuff like that. Our next target is Jason Witten, who's worked with Jason Garrett before. And I think that could be a really vital target. Jason Witten has been effective, around 55 receptions, 650 yards, 6 touchdowns. So it's not like he wasn't effective at all for the Cowboys this year. You never really heard of it. But Jason Witten is probably a Hall of Fame tight end. He might want to pad a couple more of his stats, get a little bit more ahead in the rankings, past Tony Gonzalez or something like that. I'm not sure exactly where he is in the rankings, but I think that he could be a useful tool for us. I think that he could teach Daniel Jones the offense. He could be a rock for Daniel Jones, a veteran presence in this locker room, which we don't really have now. Who's the oldest player in this locker room that we have? We had Janoris Jenkins, I guess. Alec Ogletree. Antoine Bethea. But he's not really that good, so it's not like setting a good example. And yeah, so Jason Witten is a big option for us. Again, there's an article that came out for him with him saying he's open to playing for a different team. Jason Garrett, that's probably the most obvious team to play for the Giants. He was a Giants killer, and hopefully he'll be a Dallas killer as a Giant if he decides to join us. The next guy is Austin Hooper, who isn't as good as a blocking tight end as Rob Gronkowski or Jason Witten, but he has been available. He has been healthy. I think he's only missed 3 or 4 games in his entire 4-year career. He's a free agent because the Falcons can't pay for him. If you look at his stats, 2,200 yards in his first couple of years, 16 touchdowns, 220 receptions. So he's been useful. He's been to the Super Bowl with the Falcons. He has some experience, so he may not be as veteran as these guys, but he's going to be healthy. He wants to play, and he can potentially be a good guy to replace for an Evan Engram if he's not healthy. He has the same skill set, so if Evan Engram is not healthy, he can potentially battle Evan Engram for a spot on this team. And I think iron sharpens iron. Austin Hooper has a pretty good skill set. Not the tallest guy. Austin Hooper would be a good guy if he wants to play for us, because he is a free agent and he has the option whether he wants to play for us or not. And I'm not too sure if he would want to play for us, but it's a mutual way thing. And finally, Greg Olsen out of the Carolina Panthers is pretty much, he's done. After 9 seasons, he's calling it quits in Carolina. They mutually agreed to part ways yesterday. A bunch of tight end news recently. It's kind of weird. But he could be an option for the Giants because Daniel Jones is a North Carolina kid too. You can look at him. We've seen this before with a bunch of guys. Like last year with Sam Darnold, you had the Matt Khalil that went to them and okay, I believe in Sam Darnold. And that can be a thing for Daniel Jones. You have a bright spot at quarterback. Players want to play for you. With Eli Manning, it was kind of like, we didn't have players that were like, oh, I want to play for Eli. It was players inside that were like, oh, I love Eli. But nobody really wanted to come to us for Eli Manning. You could say Golden Tate, but that wasn't really a thing. Greg Olsen is pretty old. I believe he's around 36. But you'd sign him to a 1-2 year deal, veteran minimum, like Jason Witten would. And he can be effective for us. It's ran a course in Carolina. And him and Cam Newton never really had the greatest relationship, but he can look at Daniel Jones and be like, he's a gunslinger. I can teach him the ways. And yes, he can look at Joe Judge and say he's a guy that is a leader on this team, like a Ron Rivera. They were leaders. They don't have a certain system that they want me to play into in a way. You have Jason Garrett, a veteran guy. And yeah, so I think Greg Olsen could be a great target. Let me know what you guys think. Did I miss any tight end targets that the Giants could target? Do you think we should keep Evan Engram, look in the draft towards tight end, or you're like, you know what? We have a bunch more holes to fill. Let's try to solve this in free agency with a smart $5 to $6 million deal for a tight end and spend our big bucks elsewhere. But let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.